When you dig beneath the surface of what we are presented with in this world, you realise that for many things there is an underlying agenda. The history of this deal that netted Mercedes-Benz $177 million dates back to the 2021 season. This iconic moment kicked it off.
Sergio Perez coming into the pits again. So Max, I think they're retiring the car here.
I think they're retiring the car here. Now, when you dig beneath the surface, this is the implications. Going into the final race of the season of the 2021 Formula One season, after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, you know, the one where Max Verstappen tried to take Lewis Hamilton out at that first corner, brake tested Lewis Hamilton, where Red Bull were negotiating what the start order was on the restart after the red flag, the second red flag, that one. The championship positions for the Constructors' Championship were as follows. And let me just enlarge this for you. Mercedes team occupied first position in the championship. They had 587.5 points. Second place were Red Bull Racing on 559.5 points. That is a difference of 28 points in the Constructors' Championship. 28 points. When you only have one competitor running in an event, the maximum that you can achieve is 26 points. So you can get 25 points for winning and you can get 1 point for the fastest lap. So if Red Bull had one competitor running at Abu Dhabi 2021 and they won and got the fastest lap, even by doing so, they would still finish 2 points behind Mercedes, even if Mercedes failed to score any points at Abu Dhabi 2021. So the only way that Red Bull Racing could overcome that deficit at Abu Dhabi was to have both Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez finish that race. Prior to that mysterious retirement of Sergio Perez at Abu Dhabi 2021, this was the race order. Lewis Hamilton was leading, Verstappen second, Perez was in third position. The points breakdown being 25. Let's ignore fastest lap for the time being. 25 to Hamilton, 18 for Verstappen, 15 to Perez. Bottas was in fifth position. All it would have taken was for Lewis Hamilton to suffer either a puncture or a mechanical failure in those last 3 laps of that Grand Prix, causing him to have to retire from that race, and the net result would have been a 1-2 for Red Bull, netting them 25 points for the win and 18 points for second place. That would have given them a grand total of 43 points for that event. They were 28 points, this is ignoring fastest lap, they were 28 points behind. You add to their total 43 points. That puts them in the lead by 15 points. You remove Hamilton out of that running order, Bottas gets shunted up to 4th position. For 4th position, you accumulate 12 points. Red Bull would have been 15 points ahead. Mercedes would have closed that to within 3. But Red Bull would have been the 2021 Constructors' Champions. Red Bull took away their chance of anything like that taking place by removing Sergio Perez from that race. And Sergio Perez, well, he was surprised.
3 laps to go. Nicholas Latifi is seemingly okay after that.
3 laps to go of running behind a safety car, not stressing the engine. You're going significantly slower than these cars are capable of. And a driver would be well aware if he was experiencing difficulties with the performance of that car.
Contact with the barriers around about 90 miles an hour. But he would have taken a whack, and it's good to see that he's okay. Sergio Perez coming into the pits again. So Max, I think they're retiring the car here. Perez into the pits for the 4th time. I didn't understand why, but I think they are retiring the car, and yes, they're not going to be working on it, and that is the end of Sergio Perez's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Checo, we need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box.
And for the
really? Yeah, box.
And lapped.
Really? Indeed, really. So what did that mean? Well, of course, it meant this. It categorically confirmed that Mercedes would win the 2021 Constructors' Championship, as that 28-point lead that they had over Red Bull could not be overturned with just one running car. For winning the Constructors' Championship, the Mercedes Formula One team earned $177 million. You'll see them second on the list there, because Ferrari got given $205 million in the 2021 season because they're Ferrari. Red Bull Racing received $100 million, which is $77 million less than that Mercedes team. Now, obviously, winning $177 million is going to make you feel rather good, isn't it? Well, it's not going to be you that's going to fix it. That's going to be me. I mean, but you did fix it. But what I mean by fixing it is fixing it to make it right. Repairing it is the type of fix I'm talking about, not fixing it as in manipulating the outcome. Two different contexts of the phrase fixing it. But Toto, he was traumatized by the events of that evening, as he tells us.
But he will never overcome the pain and the distress that was caused on Sunday. To be honest, I still today, I can't even understand what was happening.
A team principal of Formula One can't understand the rules and regulations of the sport.
I mean, disbelief, for me, it still feels surreal. And when I looked at...
That's a lovely outfit, Toto, and a lovely backdrop to the presentation.
When I rethink the situation that at 1827, the right decision was being taken.
What's the right decision being taken, Toto?
That no cars will unlap themselves.
That's not in the regulations, Toto. What are you trying to justify? You cannot resume racing with lapped cars in situ. You have not been allowed to do that since the beginning of the 2012 season, when that was reintroduced as being a requirement in those sporting regulations. Those regulations that you've been competing under since the beginning of the 2012 season.
And 4 minutes later, out of nowhere, suddenly 5 cars were allowed to unlap themselves between Lewis and...
Out of nowhere. Could that have been that 4 minutes later, the incident had been then cleared up, the track had been swept, and the barriers had been checked, and the clerk of the course had then declared the track clear? So there is a procedure here, there is a process. However, by the time that declaration of the track being clear had been made, them cars were on lap 57 of that Grand Prix. So you carry out the procedure, the mandatory procedure of releasing the lapped cars, all 8 of them, not just 5. And then the regulations state, once the last lapped car has passed the leader, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap. So if the cars are released on lap 57, which was the earliest they could have been, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of lap 58, meaning that they cannot begin racing until they've crossed the start-finish line at the end of lap 58, and that is the end of the race. That dictates it's a safety car finish. There can be no changes of position. Lewis Hamilton is the winner of that event. Tell us, Toto, tell us.
And Max. And 10 seconds later, the decision was taken that the safety car would come in this lap with a handful of laps only left, to be honest.
A handful of laps only left? You think one is a handful?
For me, that still seems like a nightmare. And that's why I was in total disbelief on Sunday, and I'm still until today.
Indeed, Toto, it did appear that you were experiencing an absolute nightmare on that evening of the 12th of December 2021. Evidently, Toto, you were that traumatized that evening that when it was your team that then lodged an appeal to the FIA stewards in the aftermath of that event, the protest that was dismissed by those corrupt stewards, you didn't attend that appeal, Toto Wolff. Instead, on behalf of Mercedes, you sent in Ron Meadows, Andrew Shovlin, and Paul Harris, the team legal counsel. The team's legal counsel, who accepted the presence of Red Bull at that appeal. The appeal where Mercedes-Benz were appealing to the stewards that the FIA race director had broken the FIA rules that they were competing under. And the stewards invited Red Bull into that process to ask Red Bull what they thought. And then they allowed Red Bull to go away for 40 minutes to construct its argument that Paul Harris, the team's legal counsel, could not dismiss and obliterate. Rather strange that. And I will go through this document and explain just how corrupt this procedure was. Paul Harris, the QC, okay, now KC, King's Counsel, not Queen's Counsel, shortlisted for Barrister of the Year for his roles. Barrister of the Year from the Moncton Chambers. It all sounds rather official, doesn't it? This man didn't have the wherewithal to realise that the sporting regulations of Formula One are underpinned by the FIA's own International Sporting Code. And right at the very top, Article 1.2.3 say that those regulations will never be enforced so as to prevent or impede a competition or the participation of a competitor, save where the FIA concludes that it is necessary for the safe, fair or orderly conduct of motorsport. This is a man who is put forward as King's Counsel, a barrister, an expert in law, who cannot identify that. This is a facade. He could not identify the mechanics of 48.12, the context, that being what was actually taking place and its purpose in relation to all of those competitors in that event. The King's Counsel barrister, the facade, he cannot do that. We even have the Law Society Gazette reporting on it. And here we go. I'll go through this at some point as well. The must-have accessory for a Formula One champ, a lawyer. And we'll go through that to expose just how ridiculous these people are too. but a supposed legal expert can't identify this.
Sergio Perez coming into the pits again. So Max, I think they're retiring the car here. Perez into the pits for the 4th time. I didn't understand why, but I think they are retiring the car, and yes, they're not going to be working on it, and that is the end of Sergio Perez's.
That means Mercedes are guaranteed to be the Constructors champions of 2021. That guarantees them the prize of 177 million.
Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Checo, we need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box.
And for the
Really? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Box.
And lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. It's not
What does that mean? It means there's marshals still on track clearing up the debris at turn 14. It's not safe to carry out the unlapping procedure yet. And if it's not safe to carry out the unlapping procedure, you carry on lapping behind the safety car until it is, at which point in time you carry out the procedure.
Mandatory in the regulations, which...
Yes, it is, Martin, and there's a purpose. That purpose being...
leaves Verstappen with a lot of work.
Doesn't have that purpose. The purpose is Lando Norris, the car that's racked up behind Lewis Hamilton, is now put almost an entire lap behind Pierre Gasly, who will catch the back of the pack and be at the back of it. Lando Norris was closer to Gasly at the time, 8th position, closing in on 7th position. He was closer to that than Max Verstappen was to Lewis Hamilton. They all matter. That is underpinned by the FIA International Sporting Code. That is the purpose of having to unlap the lapped cars and afford them at least one further lap with which to catch the back of the pack. What does Sky Sports tell us?
To do then.
So Mercedes will be Constructors champions at the end of this race as it stands at the moment.
No, right now, because of Perez retiring.
Assuming that Hamilton and Bottas finish this race.
What? You can't identify that having started this event with a 28-point deficit and now with just one running car, they can't overcome a 28-point deficit. You still are projecting to the world that as long as Hamilton and Bottas still finish this race.
Mercedes will be Constructors champions at the end of this race as it stands at the moment, assuming that Hamilton and Bottas finish this race. The Drivers' Championship, though, is very much up for grabs.
No, it's not. Because if we can't release these cars this lap to enable lap 57 to be that mandatory lap that safety car has to perform, to give the opportunity to those released cars to try to catch the back of the pack, then this will be a safety car finish. Sky Sports refused to identify that. Toto Wolff refused to identify that. Paul Harris, our legal expert, nominated for Barrister of the Year award, couldn't identify that. Rather strange. Please like and subscribe to this channel. This channel is evidencing the truth. It is uncovering the true level of corruption that took place in the 2021 Formula One season. This was a global fraud. A global fraud. And it needs to be uncovered. Please share the content to wake more people up to what the truth is regarding this situation. Thank you for your time.